what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. If you'd like to join the Flat Earth Debate community, go to nathanoakley.com and join the Flat Earth Debate forum. Most importantly, if you'd like to join this live discussion right now, simply mute the page you're currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by, let's get it right, Flatten Earth, Mark Doxey, Musicians for Truth, and Sleeping Warrior. Good to have you all.
Woohoo!
Hi, morning, friends.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Good to have you. Good to have you. So, any signs of curvature, gentlemen?
Definitely no signs of curvature.
Not on the west coast of Canada.
No. What about axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Got to prove there's an axis.
Joke.
No. No proof we're spinning?
Nope, none.
Right. Evidence of gas pressure without a container?
No.
Well, Jazz was supposed to provide us with some earlier, but, well, he didn't quite make it to the debate, to the hangout.
Should really update the audience in that regard. So, for any who are unaware, the pre-show ended up becoming a quasi-debate that never happened because Jazzaconda, during a re-up of an old debate from about 12 months ago, was baiting Musicians for Truth. Jason. Say hi, Jason.
Hello. Good to see you all.
And
I hear you all.
Jazz isn't a chat troll. He's been on the show, he can debate, and he's full of bravado and beans, probably because the show he was listening to he was on. Nevertheless, he was calling out and saying, come on, I'll debate you on whatever subject. I think it was gas pressure without a container. I think you're right, Jason.
Yep.
So at the drop of a hat, with him saying, where's the link, where's the link, where's the link? I said, no worries, I can do it in 5 minutes. Got the show up and running, got it live. Jason did exactly as requested, responded to my email, jumped on the show. Jazz didn't, gave out a fake email address, which I sent out and got returned. And then he didn't come. And then was like, ah ha ha, I'm trolling you. It's like, well, okay, so you're now demoted to just a track troll. Fine, no worries, if that's what you want to be. But you were a real boy before, now you're just Pinocchio. Let's move on.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate. And, you know, you can call them out. And if you stick to practical applied science, I think we're fine. We're clear. We have a valid argument, and this needs to be brought way more to the forefront. Way more flat earth debate shows going, like, let's bring it. They have nothing. It's been years. I'm still waiting for something. Please. Something that is not an unfalsifiable hypothesis would be wonderful.
Check it out. That's Fighting Talk. So the link is in the info box. Got some spirited debaters ready to go. If you want to join the panel, feel free. Click the link in the info box. Be sure to mute the page you're currently watching. So any scientific evidence of gravity. Anybody at all?
What's your guys' standing on the LIGO thing? I know, big lie, and it goes. But what is your? I've never heard actually your guys' opinion on the LIGO.
Well, it's total nonsense, isn't it? You could have a vibration from something that was in the near distance. You know.
Did you know?
Truck.
Did you know, Nathan, that they did a fake signal that they sent out to the people reading the LIGO instruments and didn't tell them? So they thought they had received. Did you hear that story before? Have you guys heard that?
This is one of Jaron's arguments.
Apparently,
so if he would always argue it that if somebody's at a control center and they're monitoring how much fuel comes into a particular system on a rocket, for the sake of argument, if the screen says there's the right amount of fuel at the moment, the person looks at the screen and goes, there's the right amount of fuel. That doesn't mean there is any fuel. It's just something on a screen, right?
Yeah. Well, the story goes that they wanted to test the LIGO system out. So without telling the people who were reading the instrumentation, they sent a signal out. And they thought they had received a signal of a gravitational wave, right? And they were convinced that they had done it, the scientists on the floor, right? And then they had to admit to them, no, it was fake. It was we created that signal you picked up. So how do you take that seriously? How do you take the LIGO experiment seriously when
apparently the simple answer is you don't take it seriously. I'll just say a quick hello to our new guest. Hey, Paul.
Hey, sorry about that. I was trying to get to mute. I'm here.
That's good. It's good. Good to have you. Thank you for joining. So, should we move on? Any evidence of the distance to the sun? Anybody?
A sextant proves it's close. Perhaps.
Maybe. You want to make that claim?
I would kind of make that claim based on the fact that it was used for so long by sailors to navigate that I think it was probably accurate. But yeah, I might be taking a jump.
It's an appeal to sailors' fallacy.
Perhaps. Yeah, maybe.
No, nobody.
I know it could go either way.
What about an actual number though? Would you give us a distance based on sextants?
3,490 miles. I think miles, right?
Man,
are they based on miles?
You're the first person to actually give us an answer in bloody ages.
Miles?
I almost don't know how to react. Is it possible to actually triangulate the sun, would you say?
Is it physical? Yeah, I don't know. What if it's just a point where light is emitted from? I can't even see. I know that it's not a giant burning ball of gas, and anybody that wants to argue that is arguing like science that we learned 120 years ago, that a giant burning ball of exploding gas could never emit a constant spectrum of light. Impossible. And so it's not a burning ball of hydrogen gas, right?
But in terms of triangulation, you know, you have to be in two places at once to physically do it, and then it's only an apparent position from your location.
Right.
Fair enough. Nobody else? Anybody else? Any more? Distance to the sun?
It's not a tangible object. Can't tell it's physical.
No, can't tell.
Could be any size, could be any distance.
Arwin's normally on the panel and we get there is no distance to the sun. But in this instance, we've been given a distance by a flat earther, and there's no globe head to challenge it. No, I'm not going to leave it. I'm just going to leave it hanging out there.
I certainly think it's a converter of some type, and I definitely think that it's within our atmospheric plane, whatever you want to call it.
Just say it. Just say
chamber.
It. Say dome.
Our
go on.
geothermal
Say
pocket.
It. Say it's in our dome. Go on.
I prefer geothermal pocket because I kind of come from the vast ice plane theory, and that we each live in geothermal pockets, and there could be many more perhaps, right, across the ice plane of a sun and moon that have been placed over an ice field, melts the ice, creates a pocket for life to exist in. That's the way. That's as far as I'm willing to go with guessing what's going on out there.
At least you put it in at the end, yeah. just guessing. Fair enough. At least you disclaimed it. It's a nice story.
Well, if someone's going to ask me, what do you think? Where do you think you are? That's where I think I am. Right. I don't think I'm on a corkscrewing salty space testicle. Right.
I'll grant you, if push came to shove, and those were the only two choices, I'd pick yours.
Oh, thanks. That's cool.
So
I don't know. I'm not convinced there's a dome yet, you guys. Honestly, I'm convinced there's a ceiling, but is it dome shaped and it comes down and encloses us in this geothermal pocket? Not so convinced on that yet. Convinced that there's electromagnetic vortices that's spinning around us with a hole in the center of it. I'm convinced of that now. And that's what's spinning the sun and moon, because they're locked in these electromagnetic grids, these layers, and they just rotate around and around. What is causing the vortices to spin? I am not exactly sure. What is the sun and moon? I don't know.
Well, talking of spinning vortices, hey, Chocolate, first of all.
Good morning, fellas.
Good morning.
Hey, Chocolate. What am I saying?
What's up, musicians? Good to see you on here, brother.
Cheers, man. Good to be.
Chocolate, what time is it for you locally?
Right now, it's 9:10 a.m.
Cool. So have you just woke up, or have you been up a while?
Been at work since 6 a.m.
Cool, man.
Oh, you're a night shifter. You're a night shifter like me.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, 6 a.m. I start, so.
Oh, you started at 6 a.m. Okay.
Yes, sir. It's 9 o'clock now, so.
Hey, new guest. Hold on one second, Chocolate. Hey, HLSS Co. How you doing?
Hi.
Good to have you. A couple more housekeeping questions. I'll just rattle through them. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, as we were on the subject of vortices and magnetism?
No. Apparently Paul Voigt's got somebody, won't let us have it because he says we're too stupid.
In that case, any evidence of the elusive R value, Earth radius?
Negative.
Nope.
Somebody, I think it was Tim, criticised us saying that if you know the circumference, you can calculate R, which is true, but it's only in two dimensions. The R value that we're referring to, of course, is the three-dimensional one that gives it a vertical aspect. So let's not misrepresent our position. Everybody knows what we mean. You can't assume R unless you can prove that it's three-dimensional. A circular radius of a pizza is supporting a flat Earth. It is not supporting a sphere.
Not a circular radius of the pizza, it's the circumference that the sun travels, and the presupposition is that it's travelling or traversing the outside edge of a sphere. So they observe the sun, which is where? Is it to the side of us if we move over there somewhere? No, it's above us. Always is, always will be. But if you formulate a logical fallacy that dictates you start observing this light in the sky from the outside edge, which they call the equator, and then say that that circumference gives you the radius of that sphere that you put yourself on to observe it going around the outside edge of that sphere, it's just a logical fallacy. It's a presupposition. R, the sphericity of said R, is an assumption. The circumference is derived from the path of the sun. This doesn't give you a sphere. Unless you demand, at the beginning of your example, if we're on a sphere, like they do in every single example.
Geez, if the father of the Mick West of the modern R value assumption admits himself that, it's an assumption in his own equation, you could almost remove this from the house cleaning. Because it's funny, right?
What are you talking about? Why would you want to remove it?
No, I'm saying you could, because you literally had the gentleman who created the modern Earth curvature calculator admit that it's an assumption. Really, that's how bigger of a concession can you get? You really could almost remove it, because, right? I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying you could, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Once you're saying it's been killed, and I'd agree. All that really means is that you'll never get a presupposition of an R value past us. That gets killed when people come in, because regardless of it being killed by us, and yeah, the expose of the presupposition of an R value in the mathematics has a much wider reaching implication, which is to say that most, if not all, examples that claim to be globe proof start with the presupposition that you are on a sphere. That is to say that at some stage, whether or not it's verbally implied or directly using the mathematics, you must assume R. And I'll give you examples. So Tim Osman keeps presenting his pictures of obstruction. He's holding on to them very dearly. Well, he has to extrapolate obstruction into Earth curve. How? By way of R. So what he does, because I've rammed R up his ass, is used it by proxy. This person who makes this calculator has a model, and they say it's a sphere. Well, no, you're just assuming R by proxy. It doesn't matter how you try and run away from the assumption of an R value. It's there, hanging out for all to see.
Poor Tim. I thought he was done with Flat Earth. He said that just recently. I'm done with Flat Earth. No, Flat Earth is done with you. Okay.
It's funny because he was whining at me the other day because I won't speak to him because I think he's a waste of time. I think he's caused more disruption than he ever will admit. And because of that, I just don't think that he's worth speaking to. I know certain people might like him and whatever, but I think he's a moron. And he's moaning at me for why would I not give him time of the day. And the answer is because of the damage that you've caused over in the years that you've been here being a professional troll. Why would I give somebody that kind of interest or like attention? You don't offer anything for me. And that's the answer.
Of course, when I end up in a room, with him, I'm usually just belligerent to him, and because I see no other way. There's no other point. He's just going to play games, and that's what he does. He plays games. I realized this years ago when he doxed Patricia. I was like, "You horrible, wretched little human being! How dare you?"
That's where I started
to a lady.
That's what started me on him. That was my introduction to Tim Osman. So when I saw that happen from her live chat, I was like, I'm going to find out who you are, and I am going to become your worst nightmare.
Yeah, same. That's how I felt. So I just treat him like garbage when I see him, because he is. He acts like garbage. He's not a real man. He acts with no honor.
He's got very girly ankles as well, though. Have you noticed his ankles?
Girly ankles, little ginger.
But he gets to be humiliated because of his anonymity that he hides behind. It means that I've managed to... Hey, Arwin.
Hello.
I've managed to hang him.
Wait,
hang him
he really
on
did
camera.
that? He doxed Patricia? Like, he really did that?
Yeah, this is like 3.5 years ago.
I talked about him for a moment as well.
He did it. Basically, the score was Patricia didn't watch her live chat, so she'd have the Hangout page up and she'd do her show, but she didn't monitor the live chat. So this is back in the day when you'd run Google Hangouts from G Plus itself. From most people won't even have the vaguest clue what I'm talking about, but from Hangouts on air, you get the Hangouts page, and that was where you used to run the Hangouts from. So she'd do it, and she'd have a Q&A that ran alongside it. But when she started to do it from within inside YouTube, she didn't monitor the chat. She just had the Hangout page. So her chat was a bit like this chat. No moderation. You could say what you like. It was wicked, right? But people like Tim Osman went in there and doxed her, revealed their address to the live chat over and over again without any challenge, because there was no moderators. You know, this was all unfamiliar territory to her at the time. But it made me furious, like livid. And like I say, I, off the back of that, pointed out that, you know, there's disadvantages to being an anonymous troll. One is that you've got no rights. You know, so I reduced Tim to a blithering, crying mess in a pool, saying, I'm going to sue you. You're, you know, telling people to come and tell me off for what he was going to do and threatening to sue me, which I laughed in his face over. It was funny as hell. I've still got the recording on my hard drive. He removed it, of course. It was very, very funny. A cartoon threatening to sue a real man. Me, Nathan Oakley. Tim Osman, a cartoon. And you could do what you like to a cartoon. So subsequently, I can rape him with an R value. I can hang him by his neck by a vacuum hose. I can do whatever I like to this cartoon with total impunity. I don't... Is that the right word? Immunity. That's the right word. Total immunity. He can do not a thing. And I can get away with what I like. I've also pointed out recently that cartoons don't own video footage. So, should you want Tim's footage, steal it, have it, thieve it, because he can't do anything about it. He's not a real person. Unless, of course, he is willing to actually do what he threatened when he threatened to take me to court. That is, give up his name and address and dox himself. Yeah, you can do that if you choose. Become a real man.
When I confronted him live about this a while back, all he could his response is, "Well, I apologized for that. You know, I totally apologized for that." And you know, this is the same story I've heard from good people all the time that have dealt with him. Is that, you know, they give him a second chance and he burns them. He gives them another chance and it's the same thing over and over again. This man has no honor and shouldn't be given any time of day. And we're probably just wasting our time actually probably talking about him. So, you know, wipe the floor of house cleaning with his face and move on, I guess. Right?
Yeah, but it's fun to torture at the moment because it still hasn't quite sunk in. It's only half sunk in, the problem he has with R. Basically, while he was pinned down squealing, he managed to get away. He ran away, cut loose. I think Arwin interrupted.
Yeah, would people even accept the globe? I mean, that the globe is a lie. I think some people will still, even when all proof is presented,
honestly think
even if it's on the 6 o'clock news.
I honestly think Gem Panda would commit suicide rather than face up to the reality. I don't think he could face it.
Hey, Zinda.
Hey, everyone.
Don't take my Apollo moon missions away from me.
I don't think he's the only one either.
He's been here a long time.
I think Paper Explanator would struggle. Flat Earth Math would struggle. I think there's a few of them that would struggle, all because well, a lot of them work it, don't they? It's their job.
Some of them have been so terrible they should be forced to commit seppuku. I say, do it.
No, but I think what Anthony's trying to say is the psychological trauma, if it were to be, as you put it, on the 6 o'clock news, would be more than they could actually cope with.
To be honest, and if you flip it the other way around, if they could prove that it were a sphere, I'd be relieved. Wouldn't have to be like focusing on this kind of nonsense as it would be then. And because the reality is, it looks flat at times, and there are times that I've questioned it with Nathan, and I've thought, it does look a little bit bendy today, Nathan. And he's like, nah. And I'm like, it does. You want to see what I'm looking at? It does look a little bit bendy. But when you see the bigger picture and you realise that the default value is that it's flat, it sometimes looks spherical but doesn't make it spherical, then all of a sudden it starts to make a lot of sense.
And Anthony, how much of it is kind of conditioned reflexes, programming, or something in our head that's almost superimposing a curve into our view, right?
Yeah.
I kind of wonder sometimes how much of that is responsible for people. I saw curvature from the plane. No, your brain was probably telling you that you saw curvature or something. You want to see it so bad because your belief system tells you that it's there. Ugh, wow, it's a mess.
Yeah.
I think it's that when you're just a normal person, you look out of a plane window and you feel like you should see the curve because you think you're so high, you think you should see it. And then maybe that messes with your mind and you might see it a little bit.
That's what I mean. Exactly.
But then, because I don't remember if before I became a flat earther, if I've actually seen the curve. I thought maybe I did. I don't know. But now, like, I'm a flat earther, I get in a plane, I don't see any curve at all. Not even a hint.
That's worth a bit of clarity, Chocolate, isn't it? Because Anthony's saying sometimes it looks a bit bendy. Well, no, you have the typical baller problem, which is that they conflate obstruction with curvature. Now, there might have been a couple of instances with things like Ranty's turbines where they are following the rules of perspective in terms of how they present themselves in a linear fashion decreasing towards the horizon. But that linear decrease will be called curvature by globeheads. Things getting smaller into the distance is ignored in the mathematics. It's only recently that we've really got thanks to people like Red Pill Philosophy and...
If you're to believe everything that we're told about the heliocentric model,
hold on.
You have to believe dozens.
Hold on. Why did you just mute me, HLSS? What's that all about?
Oh, I thought you stopped talking. Who
HLSS just muted
sorry.
me.
Hey, I'm new to this. I don't really know exactly how it works. I was just
Don't mute me.
I apologize.
No worries.
You do realise that
So-
meeting somebody is like an active act. You have to physically do it. It's not something you can really do accidentally.
Yeah, I was looking at the controls.
I could see how it could happen.
apologize.
If you're new to this, I could see how it
Yeah.
could just happen.
I apologize.
No, you're a terrorist sympathiser.
There was nothing malicious or
No, like-
contentious on the table at the time.
I
so
remember
I,
I would-
I
I
suspected it
remember
was an
I would write.
accident.
All right, go ahead.
I suspected it was an accident because there was nothing malicious going on. It's not like a heated debate's going on.
Well, now that like I've been helping my daughters with stuff, I haven't been able to talk, but I did have some things. First of all, I'm a flat earther at this point, but can you hold on a sec? I've thought of some things that contradict the heliocentric model. The thing with the oblate spheroid to me doesn't make sense because if you put any place on the surface of that oblate spheroid, the center of gravity is not going to be in the center. And especially like deGrasse Tyson talks about being a pear shape, that's going to throw off the center of gravity even more, you know, because any point of the surface of not a perfect sphere is not going to go to the center of gravity. So I just thought that was an interesting thing.
It would also throw off the spin. It would wobble more than it would just spin evenly.
And so then
Well,
they
yeah,
talk
you gotta be
about-
careful. A lot of memes have been made of like with pears painted like Earth and stuff, and that's not, you know, it's not an accurate representation of the lie that they're actually trying to spread, which is,
Yeah.
you know, it's slightly bulgy on the southern equator, right? It's like I don't think it's literally a pear shaped. It's slightly bigger, right? So
Yeah,
I don't know,
but
just
I mean,
to
what's
be
the point of
clarified
even
there.
saying it then? If it's so slight that you can't notice it, let's, you know, it's still going to be, to me, it's still going to be noticeable at ground level because we're so small. So even if it's a small change in proportion to us, it's going to be big. So
Regarding that, I really like to use plumb bobs as my example for why I think we're on a flat plane. I think plumb bobs used in the construction of really wide buildings show that we are on a flat plane surface. A plumb bob gives you the direct vertical line, right, down from the top to bottom. Now, if we're on a ball, some of these big buildings, some of them 30 blocks long in the world, there's huge buildings. They would be larger at the top. I would assume that they would be larger at the top than the bottom due to a spinning ball Earth and a plumb bob being used. Because we're on a flat plane, plumb bobs work perfectly, and we're given perfectly straight walls up and down.
If we were on a curved surface that was spinning, you should be able to put a plumb bob, let it settle, and so it's not moving, and it should never settle flat or perpendicular because of the centrifugal force. It should move all by itself and start to conform to the rotation of the Earth, but it won't ever do it.
Well, wouldn't you have to move the string that it was on?
No, it would never sit. It would never sit perpendicular because of the tangential speed of the Earth itself.
So it would always be off.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe it would always be off.
Yeah, I've never thought that's awesome.
So that basically the idea that I had and like the concept in my mind, like it shows me that gravity in itself is kind of a theoretical construct that kind of requires a perfect sphere.
It's a mathematical concept.
Yeah, it's a mathematical thing. It's just invented. So it's just theoretical physics. But
correct.
Buildings aren't wider at the top, and they don't lean away from us in the distance. So they're pretty good indication we're on a plane of existence, I think.
I'd agree.
They don't lean away from us, but for some reason we're told by the ballers that why would we expect to see the lean? Why would we expect to see tilt? But we're seeing half the building over the curvature, guys. Like, again, get your story straight. Because you guys are starting to sound ridiculous.
Yeah, I feel like it's ridiculous because we're not even dealing with close values here. It's not like we're arguing over a degree here and a degree there. There's like a massive glaring problem here, right? And they want to argue sometimes about little tiny semantics and this degree and your angular resolution of this and that, and ignoring perspective usually, right? So it's quite funny. I find it all funny that it's not even close to like, we're dealing with a minor issue here of a small, actually it's just 8.5, inches per mile squared. We were off. It's not even like there's 9 or 10 or 7 or 6 or any equation that seems to work, right? That's what's so funny about this to me.
And the funny thing to me is, further on that point, is the superlumin refraction. It's like, it seems like it would have to, as you get closer distances, it's bending up less, but as you get further away, the mountains and everything's bending up even more to present itself as flat, because everything leads up to that distance. So you're seeing, hundreds of miles as if it's flat. So to me, for their concept of superlumin refraction, it would have to be like, things would have to be broken up. You'd see like real thing, because it wouldn't be a real image, what you're seeing in their model, because you're seeing an illusion to them. Like
HL, I saw an amazing test. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you can go ahead.
I saw an amazing test, and Nathan, and you guys probably remember this test, and I really feel like it was remarkable, and it proves definitely we're on a plane, I think. And that was when this nice couple, I'm sorry if you guys can remind me in chat, or you guys can remind me here, the couple's name and the channel name, but they had climbed, they lived in Oregon area, maybe, I think somewhere in the States, and they found 3 mountains of the same altitude that you would be able to view from one mountain, right, top. So what they did is they calculated, right, how much of the mountaintops should disappear over the distance, right? And I mean, it was a vast distance, right? Like, like 20 miles to the next mountain and, 40 or 60 miles to it was quite a long distance. So when they got to the top of the first mountain, they were quite easily able to line up all the mountaintops. Like they got out their, GPS and blah, 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 and showed you what they were doing and where they were. And here's the mountains we're looking at. And they all lined up perfectly, all the mountaintops, and showing no drop or curvature whatsoever in the last mountain. And so I thought that was a brilliant, I'm sorry, I'll try and find a link for it. Do you remember that, Nathan or Anthony?
I don't remember that one.
It was a really good test, I thought. It was one of the better ones, I thought. How could that possibly, even under refraction, how could you line up 3 mountaintops over a vast distance? I'm sorry, I can't give you the exact numbers, but it was incredible. I'll try and find a link for it.
Yeah, the video is called Mountain of Evidence.
Oh, yes. Now you know the title. I do know exactly which one you mean. A Mountain of Evidence. Yes, the guy went to a massive extent, put all of the documentation down, really thorough, about an hour-long video. Yeah. Excellent. Yes, A Mountain of Evidence.
Yeah, he did that experiment. I don't live too far from where this happened. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and he did it over towards Asheville. Yeah, and he did it over towards Asheville, North Carolina, which is just about an hour and a half from where I live. So.
Okay.
This is kind of on the same topic, but I asked this question yesterday, and I've been thinking about it. Remember the Soundly video asked, how could you account for that? Is there anything you can do to account for that? And I've been thinking about possible way to account for it. And we all know the Rob Skiba video where he shows how the sun can set over a flat surface using the magnifying lens. I wonder if you got multiple magnifying lenses, and you put, whatever you want to use, whether just something that's straight up and down, and you just put magnifying sheets in between each one of those, like whatever you use, a pylon or whatever you use, if that could, because it, obviously if the atmosphere is magnifying or refracting the image, which could draw that curve, make it curve down. I wonder if those magnifying sheets could do the same thing. Just a thought experiment. What's your thoughts on that?
Somebody put it on stream the other day. I'm sure somebody had it up as a quick rebuttal.
What? The Mountain of Evidence. I've just put Sorry, folks. Sorry, that shouldn't have happened.
Mark
I
Doxy.
just put it on YouTube there, searching for the mountain of evidence, and the very top one is Sparkane's rebuttal of it. And you cannot actually find the original one. It's not up. It's not there anymore.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So when I'm in the re-ups of these shows, I'm constantly badgering the chat to share the show. And that's why, because ultimately speaking, these videos don't get found unless people share them. So smash the share button if you're watching this on the re-up. I don't care if you don't share the live show.
Mr. Thrive and Survive's got one up reviewing it, but that's way lower in the list. It's desperate. Oh, there we go. Is it a guy called John McIntyre? Is it? Oh, Jesse Kowalski.
McIntyre name rings a bell. Yes.
Oh, somebody evaluating the video. No, that's a rebuttal of it.
Yeah, what these guys do is they claim that the mountain is still there, but like they've stretched its height to make it fit. What they've done is failed to account for the angular size. And when they put the angular size back to the way it should be if it was in front of your face, then that gives them the depth that they need. But we all know that objects get smaller as a function of distance. So you can't have this extra height that they're claiming is missing. It isn't missing. You're just making shit up because you need to make your mountain bigger, and that's the effect of perspective.
Anybody see Taboo Conspiracies video where he puts a bunch of compression examples together in a compilation? Anybody see
Make
that?
sure you go and well, do you know what? Go on, Chocolate.
No, I was just gonna say it's a great video, just for the ballers that want to say, "Oh, compression is not a real thing; it's something that flat earthers made up." Well, that's real cute because there's plenty of video of it. So, yeah, Taboo Conspiracy put a nice little compilation together, so everybody should check that out.
Cool, man.
Got a link?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, go and subscribe to Taboo Conspiracy because he finds loads of new material from everywhere. I don't know he must have spotters out doing his work for him because there's no way one man that runs a couple of his own businesses is able to spend as much time on YouTube looking out for new material as this guy does. A massive shout out to Taboo Conspiracy.
So we have no defenders of the globe.
Again?
I said, do we have no defenders of the globe?
Can't come on the show, can they? They're all claiming that they're boycotting Nathan because of the mute button, but we know that they can't come on, and that's why we're getting newbies from the baller side.
I'm kind of global, but I'm kind of busy writing down the challenge I made yesterday. So, any questions? Sorry.
You're not a glober.
I'm kind of global. I believe the Earth is round. I think that
round or spherical.
Like spherical.
You said yesterday that you're ready to denounce the globe completely.
I didn't.
Or
what did I say? In your opinion?
He said if I was able to get this experiment done, I would be ready to denounce the globe completely.
Yes.
Or words to that effect.
But I failed to get the experiment done, so that's why I made a challenge. Yeah. So I don't think that this experiment will succeed, but there's always yeah.
Thing is, I got Mackle Lighthouse right, and that's got like more than 40% of it missing. Now I get that you don't think that the Earth's flat, but if the Earth is actually flat, then there is your proof.
Yes, but that's kind of a if proof, right? A if evidence, but I won't accept it as.
All right. So when it comes to 7.6R, that if Earth is a sphere with a radius of a given value, and then light bends to all hell and back, how is that any different? It's the exact same principle.
I mean, I know the Earth is a sphere. Maybe it isn't exactly the size as they told us. I don't know. I can't prove it for myself, but I know it is a sphere. But in terms of the lighthouse you just mentioned, you have to prove to me that the water actually is flat and not just level. And you have to, I don't know, you have to shine a laser. I don't know, you have to at night you have to prove it by
what about the mirror reflections? The mirror reflection tests, are those not? I mean, I've done lots of tests over bodies of water to show that it's flat, man. The guy who took his laser with a skidoo a few winters ago, drove all the way across the lake. What was that, 7 or 8 miles? Pointed the laser directly across the lake. Like, I mean, how much evidence? Like, Anthony, can you get on the 6 o'clock news and tell these guys that the Earth is flat? Because that's the only freaking way they're really gonna see it, man.
You know,
are they?
There were people who just made the same test with the laser, and they kind of showed evidence that the Earth is spherical. So that's an argument from two sides, right? There is a video.
Sorry, who showed the Earth is spherical? NASA?
No.
Do you have anybody who's shown it without unfalsifiable claims or hypothesis? Anything that's verifiable at all from any angle? Like, as far as I can tell, every single claim is an unfalsifiable hypothesis. And that is a conflict of interest, wouldn't you say? That's a little bit of a problem.
You know,
mathematics does not prove reality.
Well, if you take the data and apply it to mathematics, you can create a model which represents reality. It isn't reality.
But you do the same thing. You guys do the same thing. You always assume the R value. You start with a false premise. If you build off a false premise, right? Just like if I build off a fairy tale, Goldilocks, the 3 bears, in the end, it's still a fairy tale, man. That's why I just can't, like, science has skipped the why. You didn't answer the whys. You came up with a stupid value or a gravity theory to explain away, dark matter, all these things, ridiculous, unfalsifiable hypotheses. Not one claim can be proven, and it's disgusting. From a scientific point of view, it's dogma.
Dark matter has nothing to do with the shape of the Earth. If the sun,
I was just giving you an example of how everything is an unfalsifiable hypothesis. Every single claim that will come out of your face today, or any other glober that joins this panel, unfalsifiable. Every single thing they've presented. And no offense to you personally, sir, but that's the way it is.
So the reason why I made the challenge is because that would disprove my understanding of perspective, and my understanding of perspective is as long as your line of sight towards an object is free, only due to perspective, not due to atmosphere and everything else. As long as your line of sight to the object is free, you should be able to see it.
What?
As long
angular resolution.
Can you please let me finish?
We don't live on the moon. We have an atmosphere. So
can you please let me finish my fucking sentence? Thank you very much. You should be able to see it as long as its angular size doesn't get too small, right? So if you have if you look at something with your eyes, then your line of sight is free. You see it, and it gets far in the distance, and then it disappears, right? So that's my understanding. I feel like you're just
trying to hold on to the ball, man, and that you're just trying to make it like a super ball theory.
On the contrary,
like
sorry to interrupt, Jason. Sorry to interrupt. That's quite the contrary. So, no, this is nothing to do with the globe. So, what Zinder's detailing is entirely excluded from the globe mathematics. So, an object reducing in angular size till it disappears, that doesn't happen in the globe mathematics. They can see forever. That's why we have the nonsense arguments. Well, if the Earth was flat, you'd be able to see New York from Portugal. Well, no, because you can't see forever, perspective is real, but the fact that they accuse us of that demonstrates the fact that they do not take perspective into their worldview. What Zinda's doing is making an investigation that's outside of the current rhetoric. Now, what confuses me here is that your inquiry line is a flat earth inquiry line, because it's completely outside of the rhetoric of globe.
Yeah, I want to see it from a neutral perspective and to find out if the Earth is flat or spherical. I think it is spherical right now, but
Did you not just hear what I said, though, Zinda?
Yeah.
So this inquiry is devoid of anything globy. So unless you can show me where you're going to modify the perspective part of the mathematics used, what's the point? It's never going to prove sphericity in the slightest. Quite the contrary. You can only aid our cause with your current line of investigation.
Yeah, I think I will aid the cause of the truth. I mean, you know, when I think you were a little bit talking about the Earth curve calculator, right? That ignores perspective, right? Or did you want to say something else?
The curve calculator has hijacked perspective and replaced it with curvature.
Yeah. So the thing is, I think the Earth curve calculator doesn't account for perspective, because it only tells you when the things will disappear that are big enough to make them disappear behind the curve. In other words, it tells you when a mountain disappears that is gigantic. It doesn't tell you when a fly disappears after 1,000 meters, or after, I don't know, after 20 miles.
That's correct, Cinder.
It does so.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry, Jason.
No, but it does so.
Sorry, Jason. Just 1 second. Hold on, Owen. Just 1 second. So that's correct, Cinder. So what they say is an object will disappear in the distance depending on how much curve has been applied by the model. Well, things disappear in the distance because of perspective. So, very well put. Yes, as I stated, they replace the fact that things get smaller into the distance and eventually disappear, and state that things in the distance disappear depending on how much Earth curve you apply.
Well, I think the Earth curve calculator tells you when something will disappear, no matter how powerful your telescope is to look at it.
Yeah, I made that point too, Zinder. So, according to globe heads, things are always visible. There is no angular size reduction in globe mathematics. It's been replaced. So, the same effect. This boat being small on the horizon in the distance, that's because it's far away. That is an effect of perspective. Fact. Well, that's not accounted for when you compare photography to your maths, which is absolutely what you do. But you say, as you ably put moments earlier, that it disappears depending on how much curve there is. Well, no, Zinder, that's not the case. Things definitely disappear due to their distance and angular size, and that's completely ignored. But what you absolutely do declare is that that effect is Earth curve. No, it's perspective, Zinder. It's just been replaced in your mathematics. So you trying to figure out what happens with angular size, where are you going to apply it in a mathematical formula that replaces that very detail and calls it curve?
You know, Renty showed us beautiful pictures, right, of ships disappearing. And do you think that he used the P900, I think, or P1000? So, do you think that if you had a one of those observatories from ESA, from NASA, whatever, and you would, instead of looking in the sky, you would look at the ship from the same height as the as Renty stood with the P900. Do you think after the ship disappeared bottom first, do you think the observatory will be able to bring it back to view?
If it's of a higher elevation, i.e. you have a wider angle to the thing you're observing, is that what you're saying?
No, the elevation is the same, but those observatories, they have gigantic
I think he's just talking about the power of the telescope.
Yeah, I understand.
They have gigantic apertures.
Sure, and I explained this yesterday to you, Zinder. So during your challenge, your $5,000 challenge, I said that the only objection I would have was where you said if you increase the aperture at the lowest possible angle, you'll bring the item back due to an increase in aperture size. And I said I don't think that's possible because it's two different things that are at play. One being the limitation of the angle due to your position in regards to the lower half of your field of view. So I'm going to pause this video because it doesn't matter what video, they all have the same exact rules applied. Even this one, so where's my pause button? There we go. Oh, it's not the picture I wanted, but it doesn't matter. So whatever the height of this observer, so let's pretend for the sake of argument he's at the beach looking out at 6 foot, out at this horizon. The midpoint is your midpoint. That's the horizon that you can see. It's the midpoint of your field of view. Regardless of whether or not you point your camera above or below that point, the bottom half of your field of view is filled up in this picture with 6 foot's worth of elevation, whereas you've got an infinite angle to the sky. So that is what makes up your field of view. If you decrease your angle, you will see less across this distance. In the lower half of your field of view, you will have a more limited angle. And I showed you a video of exactly that, Cinder, with flat earth Perth raising and lowering over a square of grass. And in the lower position, it's squashed into a tiny little sliver because he's got a very limited angle to the patch of grass. Whereas when he's up high looking down on it, he can see a nice open piece of grass, wide. But that's what happens when you limit your angle of view. It's not necessarily the case if you force the angle of your lower half of your field of view to be so limited that things disappear, then you're not going to bring them back with an aperture increase. It's a combination of more than one thing. So the angle of attack, as I've coined it, is a combination of all of these things. So in terms of how to induce this effect when raising and lowering, i.e. forcing the angle of the lower half of your field of view to become compressed, that can be exaggerated if you're trying to get something to disappear through its angular size limitation with a small camera phone. So somebody yesterday tried to debunk me and they explained in their video that they'd used a 3-inch camera lens, a 3cm camera lens, to try and make a magazine disappear at 50 meters. It's like, well, you've got a big enough aperture to probably retain the resolution of that magazine, even at the lowest angle, with your camera. But try doing the same thing with the camera phone and you won't even see 50 meters away down that corridor, let alone resolve the actual magazine. You need to push it to the limits of its resolution to be able to lower and see it disappear through an angular limitation of the bottom half of your field of view. So there's a lot more to it than just saying, well, it's down to the aperture size. Or, as globers do, it's down to a mathematical construct called 7/6R that causes things to disappear at the bottom. Or, say it's down to Earth curve that's causing it. No, it's incredibly complicated. Yes, there's atmospheric conditions, the clarity of the day, how much the temperature differential between the two surfaces is at play, causing refraction, real refraction, not terrestrial 7/6R, but actual refraction effects, light changing its direction. That does happen. Also, the angle that you observe your target from, the angle of elevation, will affect how compressed the bottom half, the thing you're looking at, field of view is. Also, the resolution that you can resolve with your camera, the aperture size, the resolution limit of that camera. So all three things, when in combination, make it far more complicated than just saying it's Earth curve, excluding all aspects of perspective, and saying that those aspects, when carefully calculated with real refractive effects that do take place and can be averaged if you have enough data, and calling that 7/6R. to bring back things that shouldn't be there when they are. So, Earth curve, no. Yeah, refraction, yeah. Angle of attack, yeah. Angular resolution limit of a camera. All of these things play into what you can see in the distance. Just calling it Earth curve, it's an absolute nonsense.
Yeah, so the reason why I mentioned the observatory is because many of the evidence you guys presented were from like 100-meter distance with the smartphone camera, right? So I thought that there is a bigger correlation to the aperture size and height than I actually thought, because you know, an observatory that has like, I don't know, like 20 times the aperture size or more than a P900 should be able to bring the ship back, in my opinion, because a smartphone camera can already observe the effect after 100 meters, right? The P900 can observe the effect after 10, 20 miles, as Renty showed. And so I thought that there is a constant correlation to those three things. That's why I was kind of confused when you said that the observatory wouldn't bring back the ship if...
Oh, so do observatories ever point their telescopes like across? Aren't they always pointed up?
No, that's just theoretically.
Sorry, Jason. That's not the point he's making. I'm happy to entertain.
Unfalsifiable.
I know. We're just entertaining a thought. This is a thought experiment. I'm happy to entertain it because, as I say, you're fighting the wrong battle here, Jason. There's nothing that Zinder will achieve in his current line of inquiry that will ever, under any circumstances, support Earth's sphericity. So at the moment, he is an ally. There is no doubt about that, regardless of his motivations or feelings on the subject. So in this instance, when he's trying to describe how a bigger aperture could potentially... We had the same heated argument with Rumpus and get a quick concession about how the angular size limitation of the Hubble telescope, for example, when used in this circumstance. So it's a worthy discussion. I know he's adversarial because he is a globehead. And
mine was an honest question, though. Like literally, honestly, Nathan. Do they ever point them sideways, like across? Aren't they? Or are they only built to point up? I'm just curious if they can point down.
That would be a question
sideways.
for Apollo. So if Apollo's around and he's in the chat, he probably might be on one of the re-ups or something along those lines. If you see Apollo, he would know the answer to that question. He has access to a sophisticated, albeit I think it's classed as amateur, but it doesn't look it, nice telescope. So you could just say to him, look, do you ever literally stick this at 90 degrees? But I don't think Zinder would know the answer to that, to be honest. It's just a thought exercise that is useful for me to explain to Zinder why a bigger aperture wouldn't bring back something that had disappeared from bottom up when lowering your camera at the maximum.
I hear you.
Do you see what I mean? So what you do?
Yeah, I hear you. It feels like art class 101, and if some of these guys would have just taken some simple perspective classes and less science classes, maybe they'd understand some of this. But I hear you. I know what you're saying.
No, but look, I've had simple perspective classes, and they don't really teach you about actual perspective. They just show you how perspective sort of works in how you draw the lines to the horizon thing.
It's not taken into
actually
account.
Take into account diffraction in the
I know
none of that is taught in art school.
I know.
Right, Paul.
But when regards to perspective,
sorry,
we're
guys.
talking about perspective.
Just
go ahead.
Zinder's got a perfect example on screen, so you can see. Oh, Paul. Oh God, Paul. Thank you. So, can you see what's going on in these two instances? Oh no, it's not the example I thought it was. He's comparing flat with curved. Oh, damn. No, don't worry, it's not relevant. Sorry, Paul. Premature. So, Zinder.
If you give me a few minutes...
The reason I brought that up is because somebody said earlier about proving whether the water's flat or not. I thought that was a good illustration.
Yeah.
Just in the sunlight to show. Yeah. Because if it's over a curved surface, it'll be just a one little spot, and then over a flat surface, you can, see the distance. So anyway.
Exactly.
So why does this argument not hold up? Because I
just want to get to the end of the point, please. Someone just let me get to the end of this point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So if you've got a massive aperture telescope, for the sake of argument, it doesn't matter of a given size, and you're trying to achieve this effect, Zinder, it would have to be an identical replication. And I can give you some examples of this being done, but over a much bigger distance. So in other words, raising and lowering a telescope so that the surface that you're looking over, in this case, back to the same example, the water, is going to be more compressed. You're going to be seeing a more limited amount of it because of a lower angle to it. So if you induce that effect with a telescope, you could potentially get whatever at 150 miles away to do the same thing as a book in an iPhone camera. But as for bringing the thing back by just increasing the aperture, no, I don't think that's possible. I think once you're at that limited angle, so much so that something in an iPhone with a couple of pixels has vanished, I doubt you could bring, you might potentially bring the very top of it if you had, let's say, something that was an inch high, like a book. You might be able to bring the very top of the book back. But as for bringing the entirety of it back when it's been forced into a limited angle at the bottom of your field of view, I don't think that's possible.
Interesting. All right.
Sorry, guys. I just wanted that to be rounded out, and Cinder had a very good point.
Yeah. I'm going to rethink that a little bit in the challenge and how I should phrase it. Because, you know, the aperture size still plays a role in terms of the angle of attack, but it doesn't play as such a big role as I originally thought. So
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I also found out subsequently to making bolder than necessary claims, it absolutely does factor in, but there's a lot of similarity to the actual apertures of these cameras, which I didn't know. I thought they would drastically increase. Well, that's not necessarily the case. But I've subsequently found out that the actual angle of your elevation and how that works. I've also had other illusions shattered. So where I've been saying the compression is because things that get further out into the distance have the same effect if you have a lower angle to them, i.e. the bottom of a boat gets compressed, that's wrong. So I'm incorrect in that assertion. And Ranty and I had a little side bet on it, and Ranty won, I lost. So when he was saying that the compression of his boats is due to refraction, and I said, no, it's the limited angle having the same effect as you pushing the bottom of the boat out further because of the more limited angle to the bottom of it, he was like, no, you're wrong, it's just refraction. He was right, I was wrong. There's more to it than just saying the same effect can be observed as if you push the bottom of the boat further because the angle's smaller. It's like, no, it doesn't quite work like that. It's a combination of both. And then when you factor in the refraction itself, it's a combination of all three things. The angle of view to the observed thing, the item that you're looking at, so how high or low you are will affect how much of the deck you can see, getting less and less as you go lower and lower, more and more as you go higher and higher. Also, the actual ability of the camera to resolve information that you see in that camera to the point where it disappears in whatever given camera at a certain distance or size, i.e. angular resolution. Number 2. So height, i.e. angle of attack, or elevation of your perspective view. Then aperture of the camera, angular resolution, and then the actual atmospheric conditions on the day, how far you can see. Most of the time, that third one is the most limiting factor. You go out, have a look, and it's crap day. You can't see anything. You can't see Isle of Man because it's not there. Not because it's dropped behind the curve of the Earth and isn't looming anymore. It's just a crap day and you can't see anything. So that's normally the most limiting factor, therefore gets used as the catch-all for globe heads when they're using their mathematical hijacking of 7/6R, labelling it refraction. It's like, no, air clarity and how good the day is will cause refractive effects. But it's not Earth curve, it's not 7/6R. In fact, the two are not even slightly linked.
All right. I'm going away for like 5 minutes. I'm preparing a little thing about the like 3D modeling stuff, and wanted to show you something later. Not in Mudpit vision this time in real perspective. So coming back soon.
Okay, it's probably a nice opportunity for me to actually bid farewell to the live audience. So I'll say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And of course a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you're watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley channel, then stay tuned as you'll be privy to the after show. If you're watching in the live show, once again, thank you. Check out nathanoakley.com, join the community forum. I've been Nathan Oakley and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!